here we are back with our special project, 65 Corvette. Today we're gonna remove this cross member and replace it with a later model cross member, which is out of a C3. And the reason we're doing this is because we're gonna put a bigger transmission in here and we want to be able to take it in and out easier. So what I have to do is I have to grind out all the welds, because this is welded onto this frame. So once I get this cut out and removed, what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll smooth all the welds out and get this thing knocked out, and then we'll prep for welding in the new one. So there's minimal weld, there's a little bit of welding on this, because what happens is these will actually take the place here, but kind of works like this. I don't know if you can see that, but, and then there'll be 2 bolts on here. That way, when we want to remove the cross member, we just take this bolt out, 2 bolts here, and the whole cross member will come out of our way. So that's what we'll get going on. We'll go ahead and get this thing started, start getting some cutting done, and get these welds out of here. And what I'm probably going to end up doing, just to make it a little more time efficient, is I'm going to cut right on the inside of the welds just to get the cross member out, and then I'll come back with a grinder, maybe a flap disc, and smooth everything out. Cutting these, and I'm trying not to cut too deep where I don't cut into the frame, but I mean, I'm sure I'm gonna get into it a little bit. And I'm not cutting the welds right now. I'm cutting just inside of them, because cutting the welds would take forever. So I'm cutting just inside of the welds, just trying to get the cross member loose. Obviously, when you're cutting, you want to make sure you know where your sparks are going. You don't want to, throw them into a gas tank or anything like that. So just be aware of your surroundings. So yeah, that's what I'm pretty much doing. I'm just getting these welds cut out so I can knock this cross member out. And it's a little bit time consuming, but it's gonna be worth it. Now what I'm doing is I'm going around and making sure that all my welds are broken. This side's completely broke free from the frame, and then I'll jump over to the other side and do the same thing. According to my calculations, I should be able to knock this thing out. So that is a C2 cross member taking out without chopping it all up. Now what I'll do is I'll go through here and I'll clean all these welds up, get them real nice, and then we'll start working on mocking up the new cross member. I'll just take my little grinder and I'll go through and just clean everything up, and then I'll spray some sort of protecting on here so it doesn't continue to rust, because this stuff you just can't get to with the cross member on there. But now that we got it off, we can get to it. And then there's going to be a few things that we're going to have to change about this, and I'll set this up here and I'll show you a couple different things about these. So the C2 and the C3 have different parking brake setups on them. So if you look here, this is a C2 cross member, this is a C3 cross member. Well, the transmission mounts are a little bit different, but the C3 one will work for the application we're using. I will have to cut this off. This is a parking brake. This is where the wheel for the cable, because it would come from your handle, because the handle's about right here in the car. So the cable would come down through here, wrap around, and go through here. A C2 actually travels down through here and the cable comes right here. So when you pull it, there's a cable right here. So when you pull it, it activates it that way. So in short, what I'm gonna have to do is I'll cut this bracket off, I'll weld it back to it along with the cable guide bracket, or it's another wheel. So I'll get all that stuff transferred, but right now I just want to get this mount taken off and smoothed out and get it mocked up in there. So I've got all the old stuff cut out of it, and now what I'm doing is I'm measuring it all out so it's nice and square in the frame, because you know, you don't want it crooked or any of that stuff. So yeah, so pretty much I've got it mocked up. I've got it in place where it's nice and square and relative to the rest of the frame. Now that this is removable, I'm gonna go ahead and tack these in place because I got it sitting just perfect where I want it. But with this being removable, I'll be able to access that stuff to get it all painted and get it POR'd. We'll get somebody in there with a brush and get it all nice and coated. But right now, I'm very happy with the way it's sitting. So I'll get my welder set up and I'll get that cross member set up and welded, and then we'll install in the gas tank, front sway bar. I don't have the brakes yet for it, but they're coming. They should be here any day now. And then the rear end. So we're gonna do a stock setup on the rear here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I got the original trailing arms. I need to get those broke down because I do use the original hub with this setup. And yeah, that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start welding all this stuff in and get that cross member done. Hey, come on in and get in on this, man. Makes life a whole lot easier.
So the only part that's welded in is these brackets there.
Just this top here, because you got a bolt here and you got two bolts that come up from the bottom. So yeah, so these brackets are welded in, and then you'll be able to take these bolts out, pull the whole cross member out, put it back in.
What are some of the things you gotta be careful of on welding?
Fire. Catching stuff on fire or flash burn, you know. Not wearing a mask, trying to weld without a mask. Other than that, the actual technical part of it, as far as just, you know, watching your puddle, you know, to keep everything looking nice and clean and uniform. You know, you don't want a bunch of bubble gum on there and all that stuff. So, yeah, just watching it, keeping your puddle, keeping everything consistent. Making sure you're not anywhere, you know, gas cans laying around or anything like that, so you don't set your shop on fire. So we'll get this top weld done and this thing will be in. The only thing I have to do is I'll just put two bolts in the bottom, you know, later on once it's on a lift and stuff. Right now, we can do everything we need to do with it the way it sits right now. Motor, transmission, everything, we can put it in now. Now we have a removable cross member on a C2 Corvette. Well, the reason in the C2s, the transmissions were a lot smaller, you know, with the Power Glide transmission and the little small, you know, Muncie Borgwarner 4-speed that they had in them. So that wasn't really an issue as far as getting transmission in and out. You can sneak those little transmissions out without removing the cross member. But what we're doing with this car, it's getting a much larger transmission. And we want to be able to service it if needed. So this just makes our job a whole lot easier. You know, with the Corvette, you know, the hood's open forward, so you got to pull the hood off, you got to pull the whole engine and transmission. That means disconnecting all the engine stuff just so you can get transmission out. So doing this, drop the cross member, pull the transmission out, service it if needed, put it back in. That's it.